Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of HR Leaders Live. I'm Chris Rainey, founder here at HR Leaders, and I'll be your host. As always, I'm joined by my co-host and partner in crime, Mr. Matt Burns, who's a former CHRO and host of the Thinking Inside the Box podcast, and also a global industry analyst here at HR Leaders. Today, we've got the fabulous, the wonderful Badia Robolido, who's a Chief People Officer for Krispy Kreme, Mexico. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Fine. I know. It's always nice to come and join you guys.
I love your hairstyle, by the way, today. I'm just going to start by
I
saying that.
know.
I feel like it's
I
like
know.
super youthful and like fun and bouncy.
And it's Friday and it's
Is that
Krispy
why?
Kreme. And yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I could do this any day of the week, but in particular today because I was coming to you guys.
Oh,
I thought it would be a
thanks.
nice change.
Well, at least someone makes an effort. Normally I'm with Matt every
Of
week.
course.
So,
To be fair, if I worked at Krispy Kreme, I'd be a lot happier as well.
is that because you're always high on sugar, Vadia? Is that why? You just...
No, I cut it down on those things. You know, you do not give Speedy Gonzalez Red Bull.
Oh,
Never do
okay.
that.
I can't even
Never.
imagine you on Red Bull. I think that shouldn't even be allowed. I think like,
No,
would
I,
you?
I, I, I've, I've tried it, and the effects are I do not sleep for around 45 hours.
How do you do with coffee?
Oh no, I don't have coffee. Oh
Same
God,
thing.
no, 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 no. Same thing. I'm a tea girl.
Yeah, but do you like? There must be a point where you're just exhausted at the end of the day, right? Because whenever I speak to you, you're always such full of energy and passion and excitement. I'm like, does it? Where does it end? Does it taper off, or are you just constantly running?
I, I mean, I get tired when, like, if I fly, transatlantic one, and then with a jet lag. Besides that,
Okay.
usually I get to bed when I put my head on the pillow, I'm gone,
Do you know
and then
what?
I get up again.
Do you know what I do when I'm feeling really tired?
What?
Have a guess. I grab a Krispy Kreme, and I promised you last time I spoke to you that I was going to make it happen. So here in the studio, we got Krispy Kremes delivered today, right here. So I'm going to grab one now. You can't have one, but you've got loads.
No,
But I'm gonna
no, no,
I don't know what one I'm gonna
no. And
choose.
I,
Actually, you know what? I'm
yeah,
gonna
He's
go
been
some
with.
talking
people.
about this, by the way, for months. He's been like, had this date circled on the
I
calendar.
was like,
Yeah.
He's been practicing every day leading up to it, getting donuts, practicing
now
his
Just
what I
making
routine,
sure the
making
bite,
sure.
the eyes,
oh
you have to do
I'm
it.
gonna
Oh
go for
yes,
the
Right?
original.
exactly.
I'm going for the original because you can't go wrong.
What else could you go for? That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the
So
one.
if I yeah, so that
Look
so
at
I know,
that.
sorry, Matt. I think you told me that they don't do Krispy Kremes in Canada, right? Or did I just make that up?
They do, just not work.
True.
They do. Let's no, whoa, whoa,
I'm just
don't
upset.
turn Badia against
I'm
me.
just causing controversy on the podcast for the hits.
Hey,
I'm joking,
Mexico, Canada, and the UK, we can all be friends here.
I'm
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
joking.
And I know they're not predominant because Tim
Right.
Hortons is a little bit it's the leader, but we're there. We're there. So
To
yeah.
be fair, though, Tim Hortons is now owned by a Brazilian private equity firm, so Krispy Kreme is slowly nudging its way into market dominance here in Canada,
I feel like we just created
I hope
the
so.
Krispy Kreme show right now. That we're
right?
Do you still put maple syrup on the Krispy Kreme, Matt?
Yeah, we want
There
to
is a
play
there is
hockey,
a
eat a
maple
donut.
syrup one. There
Yeah.
is a maple
Oh,
syrup
okay. So
donut we have.
you've already
Yeah.
got it ready for the Canadians straight
Yeah.
away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Before
Yeah.
it came to Canada, I used to live in Vancouver, which is close to the border of Washington State. People during the weekends would go across the border to Costco for cheap gas and Krispy Kreme donuts. So this is like a thing when you live in a border town in Canada. People travel across the country border to get to those donuts.
Oh my god.
This
Well,
is great advertisement, guys. Keep
that is like
going.
keep
I
it keep
love
it.
it. Love it. Yeah.
Can we share your t-shirt on camera on LinkedIn
Are you sure?
without getting banned? I don't know.
I don't know. You tell me, guys.
Go and share it.
You brought
I
it.
think it's fun. I feel like if the audience will
Okay.
appreciate your humor,
Okay.
the sense of humor. That is the best t-shirt that we've had on the show. You've won the award for best t-shirt for the show so far, and it's just hilarious, everyone, as well. Yeah, and the fact that you're the HR leader and you have that top on just shows me how amazing your culture is. You know that
As
that
I've told you before, I'm the HR person, so I would never say it, but that doesn't mean I cannot wear it.
yeah. Plus, as we said off air, who's going to report you to?
Exactly.
It's true. You're fine. You're all good.
You can call my husband, and we'll see about that. So there you go.
let's not even go there. So Matt, what are we talking about today? What's in the news?
I don't know about you, but I think I see every hour on the hour on my LinkedIn feed an article about the move to skills. And I think skills is a great conversation for us to have, especially with an organization like Krispy Kreme that is going through transition, like a lot of other organizations in the manufacturing retail space. So, Batty is a great guest for us to have that chat today. I think we get to the specifics, Chris. I look at foundational skills in particular, and the nature of skills are changing so quickly in organizations. How do HR leaders like Badia think about upskilling, reskilling, preventing with a workforce that is obviously quite transient at times, keeping knowledge and the institutional knowledge in the organization? These are all things we're talking about today.
Badia.
That's the idea. That's the idea.
Kick us off, because I was reading the article before we went live around the top 10 skills. But before we get into that, what are you currently seeing, Badia, in the landscape, and how that relates back to the work that you're doing at Krispy Kreme?
Yeah, I also read the article, and yeah, I definitely have to agree. However, I don't believe it's going to happen to everybody at the same time, the same sector, that all positions, etc. Obviously, there's much more emphasis in some sectors than others. Being in retail, I can tell you that those skills mentioned in the article, and which we'll go deeper into them in a little while, do apply to some of the positions in Krispy Kreme, or some areas, but not necessarily to all, or to the bulk, let's call it, which is the actual, at the counter. So there are ones that are becoming much more relevant, but it's not like a copy paste. This is how it is. So having said that, yes, I've seen it. We are definitely rethinking, remodeling the way we recruit, we train, we develop, but on a, as we see it, in a need to need basis, because change, as you know, takes time. I wish it could be just an upgrade system on people, but unfortunately it's not. So you have to bring it in, and it's a slow movement. The thing that I see different from years behind is that we have to have also a chip of doing it faster. We always talk about the race for talent, the race for skill. It sounds great in paper and looks nice, but really race means speed, and we are very slow. Even the fast organizations are slow. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And it's like trying to have a race with a 2-year-old in one hand, carrying the baby on the other, and a 3-year-old on your shoulders. You're trying to pull everybody at the same time. It's hard. It's hard to do it. And then once you're trying to get there, something has changed already with technology or whatever it may be. So keeping up to speed is the biggest challenge I think organizations are going through, understanding the skill, but also being able to get there fast. Yeah. So, and constantly changing. So yeah, that's where we are.
I'd love to double click on that a bit more. I think you're spot on in that industries are obviously affected at different rates. I would also add geographies are affected at different rates based on demographic changes. As you think about shifting your strategy, understanding you see like where you are today and where you want to be, let's just say 3 years down the road, what are some of the activities that you're thinking about when it comes to your strategy? What are you evolving? Is it the tool sets you're using to deploy your learning? Is it the strategic conversation around core competencies in the company? Like, what are some of the things that you're thinking about as an HR leader as you make the transition from today into tomorrow?
We've, when Krispy Kreme, or when I started here, one of Krispy Kreme, let's say, core behaviors, or what they push, we call it ingredients, obviously, because it makes sense, right? The recipe with our ingredients, and those ingredients incorporate somehow, obviously with different language or with different words, but they do encompass most of the things that were in this list. Things like the curiosity and resilience and technology savvy, etc. So they're there with different words. So I was comfortable to see that there was a future, like they looked futuristic, or they were relevant, they were trendy, but also relevant in the near future. I don't know if maybe 10 years from now, but at least in the near future, 3 to 5 years made sense. So that at least give me a leeway of time to say, okay, I can work with that and actually make it sustainable, because as we've said before, it's not a plug and play. So we've been focusing, or our strategy has been focusing on ensuring that everybody, one, knows them, and two, focusing on the ones that are, because there are many. We're obviously there are 12 because we love dozens. So there's
Of
12 of
course.
them. That's a lot. So we cannot do 12 focus trainings every year, you know. So what we do is depending, and as you mentioned, geography. So my market right now needs to focus on A, B, and C. And that requires an emphasis on these ingredients, or in the, you know, these behaviors, these competencies. So although I may be very strong at them, that doesn't mean I won't be involved in it. Actually, I will become part of the people that would help push those competencies, because I am evaluated as strong in them. And we've come up with different ideas, tools to try and help develop. And also we're shifting slowly the way we hire. There are different positions, there are different needs, and not all of them require them at the same time. So it's hard, because you have to, you know, juggle so many positions, so many needs, and making sure that everybody doesn't feel left out, or I didn't know you had it, or I applied and I didn't get it. So it's also keeping everybody happy. They say that if you want to keep people happy, sell ice cream. Well, we sell donuts, so it's kind of the same thing. But we got to commit to that. It's hard. It's really hard, because you never, you know, people have different expectations, so on. So that's what we're trying. It's I want to say we're fast, but we're not. It's a slow process. But from when I started to where we are now, I feel proud to say that I think that the change has been noticed, and people who were very skeptical, and they've said it to me, like, you came in and we're like, what a weirdo. And now you know, I'll eat my words, I'll eat my hat.
And the donuts.
I see what you've done, and the donuts. I've seen what you've done, and we believe that there's, you know, we want to help. We don't want to be in the wagon. We want to pull with you the wagon. So hopefully we can be reacting at the speed that it's needed for the changes we need in our market.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think and by the way, for everyone, that we're going to link a link in the chat to the article. So it's the top 10 skills for 2023, so you can check it out. I think one of the things that I took away from the article, which really kind of just really stood out to me, is I expected to see things like AI and big data. I expected to see technology literacy. I expected to see curiosity, lifelong learning, resiliency. But number one on the list is creative thinking. And it's the top 10 skills on the rise, should I say. And that makes sense, right? Because a lot of the analytical side, we've got technology in place to focus on that. And all of a sudden, we've got this gap where it's not about, you know, having access to AI or ChatGPT. It's how you use it. And then that needs a creative mindset to be able to use it. So I saw that companies that were surveyed said that the role of the demand for creative thinking will grow by 73% in the next 5 years. And sorry, there's 73% more demand, for creative thinking than analytical thinking. I never thought I'd see that. So the focus is, we had this gap in analytical thinking before. That was the big skills gap. Now we're seeing, okay, we've got technology in place. We're really lacking the creative side as well. And so that was really something that really shocked me and stood out.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Matt?
AI, right? This is the AI impact, where AI, frankly, with all due respect to you and I and Badia, is just smarter than we are when it comes to analytical thinking. Like, if you put good ingredients into AI and set good parameters, you get better outcomes. And
Yes,
Chris, you and I are on WhatsApp every single day talking about something we researched or developed on ChatGPT.
Yeah,
like,
true, yeah.
It is a daily occurrence in my house now. If my partner's, you know, on the couch and she's Googling, I'm like, what are you doing? Why don't you use ChatGPT?
Said that. Why are you on Google? Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Why, like, Google feels like it's old fashioned now, because it's limited in its context around search. So artificial intelligence increases the capacity of anybody who uses it. You know, there's an age old, now it's becoming an age old adage, but there's a saying out there in HR that talks about, you're unlikely to be replaced by somebody with AI. but you might be replaced by somebody who uses AI. It increases the capacity of the individual who's using it. And I think when it comes to now analytical work, this is what AI does really, really well. What it doesn't do great, at least at this stage, is mimic human behavior, like, building, relationships or collaborating, or in this case, creative thinking. And that's where hopefully our workforces, where they can, and I think Badia's example at Krispy Kreme is great, because some of the workforce, we want creative thinking, and some we don't want creative thinking. We just want them to do what they're being asked to do. But for the roles that are requiring more creative thinking, it's going to push people into work that we're ultimately better suited for, and that's ultimately more enjoyable. Like, ask me if I want to spend 6 hours brainstorming a new business idea or reconciling a spreadsheet and make it looking for errors. Like, it's a no-brainer. But I think that's, Chris, one of the reasons why we're seeing that shift. It's now information's ubiquitous and it's easy to access and analyze. What do you do with the information that you have? That's where the creativity comes into play.
Yeah.
Yes, and the common sense, which is the least common of all senses, but still, even if it's that uncommon, it is better than artificial intelligence. So because you have the context, because you understand the need, because you understand that. So when you put those two together, then it's a relief to know that there's still, a job for us, because it's not as simple as one replaces the other. So yes, I was it took me a little while to understand what it meant by that, when you, as you mentioned, Chris, it was surprising, but to me, to understand exactly what they meant. But it's true, and I still see it in meetings. You have all this information, and then you get everybody has a paralysis by analysis, and you're like, yeah, okay, so what are we gonna do now, guys? We've been here 3 hours. Because
let's, sometimes it's slowing down. One of the things I'm seeing in companies is too much data is actually slowing down the process, decision-making process. It's like, and that was something to discuss at our event that we did at Lego, our See It Through roundtable, Matt, right? It was brought up by the audience, by the people analytics leaders themselves who brought up this challenge. They actually got too much data, and it's actually causing companies to just, freeze and not know what to, how to make a decision as well. So it's sort of this combination of using it to help, using your gut and your experience, but then also having the data to make an informed decision. I think the power of both equally valuable as well. But
Reality, you love this story. So I think I told this in this podcast before. If not, I certainly told it on my own. When I was in an HR role with a large Fortune 10 company, people can figure out who that is. One of my mandates was people analytics. So I had access to all of our dashboards, all of our scorecards for a company that was $21 billion, 96,000 employees. So lots and lots of data. And for the nerd in me, I was like, amazing. What I'm going to be able to do and envision and analyze and take actions against this could be, we could take a model and go truly predictive and focus on fire prevention versus firefighting, which is like the holy grail, pardon the expression, in HR, to get ahead of the problem versus having to triage the problems that come in. And where I actually spent most of my time, the analysis was solid. The reporting came in consistently. It was clean data. There was lots of it. I spent almost my entire mandate managing politics, where it was people used information as a mechanism to assess performance. And then it turned into a giant finger pointing exercise when the data would come down and people would ask questions about recency and relevancy and accuracy. So we'd spend all of our time just, again, playing traffic cop for those kind of conversations, when what we could have been doing is saying the number is the number. What do we do about making the number different tomorrow, and what actions can we take to drive that? It's a lesson that I learned the hard way when I then moved to another organization and then took people analytics and said, we're actually not going to attach any type of performance implication to our information with people analytics. It's just going to be a coaching conversation.
Yes.
And the consequence of that was, okay, we're maybe going to make the board or senior leadership uncomfortable because there's no accountability for those who can't see. I'm giving the air quotes. But what we do get is collaboration, where leaders would come to us and say, hey, I'm really struggling in my role and it's translating into my KPI performance. Can you have somebody in your team come and help me? I really want to affect this score in a positive direction, versus I'm going to be defensive and blame people and not actually address the root cause, but to address the perception of the result. So that was a big lesson for me in HR, because I was very much on the accountability side of the ledger. But when we made this transition, we were able to improve the analytics performance in the company 10 times faster and more effectively and more collaboratively than if we'd said, let's just increase the accountability and the punishment if things don't go right, which is what a reaction a lot of companies get to. For your organization, you know, obviously it's a culture built around fun and experience, among other things. I'm curious, you talked about the transition you're making and the need to, you know, obviously move quickly. How do you measure? And then how do you measure, but also in a way that supports the cultural transformation that you're trying to make and doesn't hinder the efforts, if that makes sense?
We were doing exactly what happened to you. We're transitioning from the number, finger pointing, and, oh, you're the good, you're the talent, you're the dumb one, to a informative a way of having a rich conversation between either the team or, you know, your leader and yourself. But it's funny what I've bumped into, because, you know, I took away the numbers.
Sure.
And then they're like, so what does the purple mean? Because I put colors. What does the purple mean? And I'm like, that I thought it was a cool color? I'm like, I don't know. Nothing. They're like, no, but because Krispy Kreme's or official colors is green and red. So they're like, oh, red is bad because they're doing talent reviews. So it's
stop.
And I'm like, no, they're the official colors of Crispy. So that's why I put a green and red, and then a purple and a yellow. Oh, so people are very, because of where we come from, especially people from you know, from
managing
with experience,
numbers.
They need a reference scale. They need it, because they're like, am I doing good? Am I doing bad? I'm like, you're just doing. So focus on what can you improve. So then I took away the colors, and then they're and one of my girls thought it would be a good idea to put, like, you what was it? You nailed it, or like expressions like that. Again, it was like still a measure, and I'm like, damn, you know, people really need it. So it's been an interesting path to and now I don't use red, I don't use green, I just use blues and yellows and oranges. So they have no reference and they just read. I'm like, that's what you should have done since the beginning. Read what you're good.
How crazy is it that you're having to explain that, rather than looking at just a number on a spreadsheet, how about have a conversation with the individual? and what a crazy concept to have.
To be fair, it's the environment most of us grew up in, starting at school and going through, like, you get a number for a score, and that number assesses your evaluates your quality contributions,
or
and
A, B, C, or D, an A, B, C, or D.
And
right?
there's a degree of necessity.
Curve.
There's a degree of necessity. I mean, body is going to have to quantify performance to conduct performance evaluations and salary adjustments. Legal is going to require more than just different colored spreadsheets and 5-word definitions. They're going to need some new quantification of effort to demonstrate, just from a legal perspective. So we're not saying make it be a free for all, but I think it's what we're both saying, which is important, is it's the intention in which the information is leveraged, which is the shift that we have to make as well with skills. Bringing things back to our point, is what got us to this point is not going to get us to the next point. We have to change the way that we do things. What's cool for people like us is that we're all invested in making work better. We have an opportunity to do that. We have to stop thinking about the things the way we used to always think about them, because if we do that and just apply AI to it, what we're going to get is organizations that move faster, expectations get higher, but we don't actually create space for the things that make people's work better.
Yeah.
One of the also skills there was the technology. What was it called?
It's basically technology literacy.
Technology
literacy.
Yeah.
And when I was thinking about that one, and the other day I was at a party, and they started playing. They just throw a question. What animal would you be? And where would you have a house if money wasn't? And one of the questions they asked was, what is a skill that every human being should have, or should know, should learn? My first reaction was swimming. But then I thought about it. And I'm like, I think everybody should be able to swim. But anyway,
that's such a you reply, by the way. That's such a you response.
I was thinking empathy, but swimming is also pretty important.
I was thinking empathy
is important.
Matt, I actually thought of empathy as well.
With floaties. So anyway, so I thought, no, hold on a second. Hold on. Let me do this a little bit deeper. And I was thinking, I think they should have this ability, and I didn't put it in those beautiful words, but I said the ability to technology savvy, to be able to to learn technology. Because I don't know in your experiences, but for new hires who are just coming out of university, it's been, and it's constant, it's not recent, it's a common thing. Some of them don't even know Excel, and Excel is an old thing now, and I'm not asking coding, I'm just asking that kind of basics. I still see them not knowing. So I'm like, but I've seen my father-in-law, who's 87, he has a blog. So it's not a matter of age, it's a matter of attitude, it's a matter of willingness, it's different. So for me, if I had to choose, as an owner of a company, where should I invest? I think we should invest in two main things: technology, but in training people for this technology. And one of the first things they cut when things get tough is training. So you can have the technology, but if you don't have anybody to be able to use it, you're kind of screwed. Or if you have the people trained, but you don't have the technology, again, you're kind of screwed. So for me, these two are essential.
Yeah.
And there is a fight, because being in HR, I know the first thing they cut when things get tough is training. And then they freeze positions and so on and so forth. But training seems to be the common one.
Badia,
so
I was really, really hoping deep down that you was going to say technology and swimming.
Yes, exactly. If we could take our computers to the Bahamas.
Yeah. Well, we already had a big set of employees that did that, right? You can work. Wait. I can work from anywhere. Yeah. We already had that conversation already. Yep. As well. Matt, what do you think is going to be the impact on companies that don't move towards a skills-based approach?
It's not going to be pleasant. I think Badia's earlier comment was really smart in that we're already seeing the changes occur right now. Hey, wait, credit where credit is due. We've already seen the transition now. And I also spent most of my career in the retail sector, where we saw the skills drain affect us before you will see it in other industries. But it won't be too long before you see the skills drain in the professional services industry and in manufacturing. We're seeing it now in retail and in healthcare and in hospitality, because the work hasn't really transformed, but the workforce has transformed. And the skills-based economy is encouraging people to go to university, to become technologically literate, to all the things we've talked about. But some of those jobs don't prioritize that, and they're not highly valued jobs from a compensation perspective. So as a consequence, people are incentivized to upskill themselves to be able to do different kinds of work. If you offer most people the opportunity to be a full stack developer, or to work in a retail format, weekends and evenings, or graveyard stocking shelves, it's an easy choice between the two. But some people don't have the skills to make the transition, don't have the privilege, don't have the access, don't have the resources. The beautiful thing around artificial intelligence is that it empowers organizations to put those tools in the hands of their employees and upskill them more rapidly than we ever could by putting them through undergraduate degree programs or doing other types of development. So the cool thing is workforces can actually help transition their teams, but they're going to have to make the decision to make that investment, because what's traditionally happened, and I've been part of this problem as an HR leader, is you go to the market looking for talent. So if you don't have it within your team, in some cases you make that decision. And Chris, friend of the show, Ross Sparkman, strategic workforce planning, build, borrow, buy, right? In a lot of cases, if you're a big company, you go out to the market and you buy the talent. You go and say, hey, I'm missing this particular skills, I'll buy it. But we've had this conversation consistently the last couple of months. Demographically speaking, there are more people leaving the workplace every single day than entering it, because of demographics in Western Europe and North America, as well as Mexico's a bit different, Badia. So I'd love your thoughts on the demographics, that how that's different in that market. But for most of us, an aging workforce means there are less people coming in than leaving. The talent pool to draw upon to buy talent is shrinking and becoming more and more expensive. So companies are going to have to shift more of their spend to training and development and succession and skills building. But the way we did it before wasn't efficient, wasn't effective. We like a show of hands, who of us learns best through PowerPoints and lectures? Exactly. But with AI, we have the ability to create customized micro learning that's curated, that's personalized, that really meets people where they're at and helps them grow their skills. We're going to have to make those kind of investments, Chris, in the technology to increase the skills transfer, to be able to be operationally viable, let alone be successful. So I get really excited because maybe I'm a bit of a pessimist after this many years being in the corporate world, but I know that companies generally don't move unless they have to. Now they have to. They don't have a choice. So either they make this move or they're not going to have the resources that are in place to be able to sustain their business operations. That's the whole hard truth of it. The good thing is that we have an opportunity to take that challenge and double down and make work better for people at exactly the same time.
Yeah. Matt, I feel like you just leave it there. after that, I was like,
done.
Yeah, I had all my things written down there of the benefits, and Matt just covered them all in a very
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I did write your script, so
yeah,
that's
true.
And kudos to you.
And when I said I have my answers, I meant the answers that Matt GPT gave me as well. Yeah.
But Buddy, I mean, to that point, what are the implications? I mean, the Mexican market specifically, I did my MBA in Mexico City in part, so I understand the uniqueness of the market. What is unique about Mexico when you think about talent and maybe how it differs from Western Europe, North America, in terms of how you're approaching it differently in Mexico than you maybe would if you were the CHRO in the United States, for example?
I think this is okay. My husband's Brit. I was telling you before. And what I noticed when we talk about music is that he talks about what I say it's 80s music and he says it's 70s music. And I'm like, that's what's happening here. Is it happens there and then we get it here.
Okay.
So it's we're not as bad. It's not a decade, not anymore.
Yeah.
But it is still a little bit slower the way we react. And I'm gonna be brave enough to say in Latin America, not only Mexico. I'm being maybe speaking a little too much out of my space, but I think so. We are seeing it. It's not that it's not there. It's just that when I read all these articles, and most of the time I read them and it's like seeing a crystal ball and I'm like, shit, this is coming. And so I can prepare myself a little bit. We react differently, depends on the economies of each country, depends on the government, depends on many things, many factors around it. And one thing we were talking the other day with the US was we were talking about automation and simplification of processes that we have in all, same processes like in finance and payroll, things like that. And they were surprised that part of the things we do here are daily while they do it monthly. And I'm like, yes, and we were talking about reconciliation of accounts. And I'm like, yeah, but think about this. The minimum salary in Mexico is the same amount as you pay for a dozen donuts. In the US, you pay about 7 dozens. A minimum wage, if we do our daily comparison. I'm like, so it's that extreme. So it's not, yes, we do have turnover because and I'm talking retail, because for only $3 more, people would move to another job as small as that, because $3 is a big difference here. And so trying to react to that. But then you have these positions that I mentioned at the beginning. There are the ones that I see most easily or quickly affected. You have two populations and you have to start acting and reacting because this one's affect this one. So it's a different combination. But for me, reading all this, seeing how and what works for you meaning my Krispy Kreme US or my UK or Australia, I can take a lot of quick learnings. Not in a decade because it's a matter of months, but we're still a little delayed. It's like COVID. We were delayed a few months. So it's the same thing. That's how we are trying to approach it, trying to actually learn and not trying to think that it's not going to happen to us because we're different, because we're in a different culture. It isn't. It's the workforce. And now after COVID, because borders were kind of erased in terms of work, particularly remote, I have a lot of people here in Mexico when I approach them to offer them, headhunting them, they're like, no, because I work for a company in Spain. I work for a company in Canada. I work for a company. I'm like, Jesus, I had never, it's something that they make dollars. They don't get paid in pesos. So, and it's it's a lot of dollars for them, not a lot for the employer. So, you know, it's a shift that we're having also worldwide, that we are starting to cross border affect each other, which never happened before. And we need to react as a delayed market, if you call it somehow.
I suppose like technology is short on that time so much, right? Because technology, media, social media, the different tools that are developed in the last couple of years, COVID, obviously, as you said, now you're competing not just, you know, within Mexico, but with companies globally, which every organization is. So if you think that you're excluded from this, you're not. As well, everyone's affected, and that's even more reason why you need to move to a skills-based organization. So you can capitalize on that, upskill internally, and have the benefits of being able to move quickly. Because if you have an organization based on skills and something happens in the marketplace, you can pivot. You're agile. You can move quickly to react to that. You're also giving your employees opportunities to upskill, reskill, which is going to keep them engaged, keep them motivated as well. We can keep going with the benefits of that as well. Absolutely. I feel like we have to do a part 2, but Badia, I appreciate you coming on as well. I feel like I'm gonna have to eat the rest of my donut now because I only had one bite, and I feel like I need more. But
just a bite.
Yeah. Is that like the
audacity?
Imagine just sorry, I'll finish it. Don't worry, it's fine. But as always, we appreciate you coming on. Your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion for what you do always shines through, and I love having you on the show. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, it was, as always, is a pleasure. Love talking to you guys. And yes, it's always too short.
I don't think we'll have any problem keeping you talking. I got the feeling.
Oh no, I can talk until the cows come home.
Yeah,
you got me,
Matt. A pleasure as always, my friend. See you next week. For everyone, if you're listening, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the share button on LinkedIn, tag in some colleagues that you feel will benefit from joining us. Apart from that, enjoy the weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone. See ya. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Adios. Adios.
Adios.